Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John's reports for the 16th. Well, the juggernaut continues, but this is something I want to point out. When we get these kinds of runs, you can get these day after day of up moves, and it's only going to be one day, and we're going to eclipse all of it and take out the low at 40.21. It happens quickly. Now, what we're looking at from an MBI reading here with this white down at 185, once we start to get that pivot up, and if we get a crossover of magenta, we're likely to see some of this kind of action that we saw at the end of February. It's just sort of a typical move where it takes a long time to push things up, but it goes very quickly when everyone's running for the exits. So it's just something to be prepared for as we flatten out here. It hasn't changed. I mean, you still got solid blue well above the green here, and that's a continuation pattern. It'll take a little bit before that fades, but when the dip does come, it does tend to be fast. So it's worth noting. Keep an eye on your ABMs, and that will really be a reflection of it. Interestingly enough, we're already seeing that kind of effect here on the NASDAQ already beginning. And it's early, of course, from a pre-market standpoint. Mean as much. From a gold standpoint, starting to make its move. We kind of were leaning towards that being in a positive stretch. We've had the shakeout continuing to climb and then moving positive, all coming off that yum from before. And as the real inflation that market forces watch, as opposed to just your regular government statistics, which are mostly useless because they've massaged them to the point where they don't really reflect anything that's really relevant towards inflation. But you're going to see some of that activity. Now, of course, everyone's been talking about the cryptos and the moving into Bitcoin and stuff like that. But that's going to get more complicated as more players get involved, and you're going to find that that's not as simple a trade as some people want to make it seem like. The euro has been on a tear because of this belief that the U.S. spending is just going to be through the roof without any question, and the EU is certainly not even keeping close to spending that kind of money, so it certainly attracts it. Looking at Bitcoin here, so it reached its peak up here at 66, just shy of that. What was the actual high? 65,520 range. We had gotten the short right around 64,680, so pretty close to the peak there. And then it made a nice down move, had a little bit of a buy on this middle range right there, but that flipped around pretty quick, wasn't able to sustain it. And you can see we filled the positive extreme, which we had at the 61, was 61,630. Blew through that. The next one is 59,945. Getting pretty low, negative 2.4 on the red. It could be getting close to the bottoming stages here, so we may see if it carries down through it before it starts to pop up briefly. Intraday. Well, intraday was sort of boring to begin with. We had that MBI from the previous day, and we just continue all the way along, never-ending, slow assault. It was just like, then the blue candle, blue dot right here, which adding those in a little bit later today, and so we should start to see the reds that will come with that. They don't come very often, but when they do, they won't show up when you already have a red trend, so that's not going to be as relevant. But we ended up with a little bit of a late day. Let me enlarge that because it's hard to see when these candles get so small, because literally we were having like tiny movement. Came down, filled that back in, all off of really deep moves of that red, and you can see it every time you get into those negatives. It just starts to build, and it's just a matter of waiting for that either pivot up of the green, when both green and blue do it. That's where that MBI shows up, and that led to the peaks again. We still ended up with the post-market, a little bit of softness, just fills back in some of that. There were positive extremes throughout the day, but a lot of them got filled on these little moves. I've marked a bunch of the other ones that are right over here going down, but we've been in these straight up modes, And when you get into that range, it's nice and clean. There's not a whole lot to think about or do. It just keeps going in that direction. So clean and simple. I don't think there's anything to really get worked up about. It's just a matter of watching this, and particularly like the 50K for signs of rollover, because that's where we'll see it in conjunction with the 5K. But at this particular stage, I mean, even the 50K is looking solid for now, and so as long as it remains that way, we just keep going with where the action is. As always, though, I will update relevant charts on the Skype chat. Trade well, and we'll talk again later.